Hi, this is Donna. Welcome to DD Paper Crafts. Today I'm making a requested box following the recent cat and dog boxes that I've made. I had a request to make a tortoise. So this is what I've come up with. So we have a box on the back within the shell. This is 1.5 inches deep in the base and it's approximately 5 inches across, and then the overall height including the shell is around 4 inches, and then we have an additional section within the head here. We will be making our own hexagons for the base and the top, but if you have nesting dies you might have those that are the right size. If not, we will be making the hexagons from scratch. So without further ado, let's put the piece together. The first thing we're going to do is make the base of the box, and I have a piece of cardstock which is 4.25 times 5. I'm going to work on the reverse. We're going to make within this piece a hexagon with 2.5 inch sides. So if you have a hexagon die that size, just cut one of those out into your base cardstock. So this piece is 4.25 times 5, and we're going to work along the short edge, so along the 4.25 inch side. The first thing I'm going to do is make a pencil mark on the top edge of the card, halfway across, so that's going to be 2 1/8 of an inch. Bring in your ruler, and you want to line your ruler up with the 1.25 inch mark down the left hand side and draw a line straight across. If you're going into your base cardstock, just do this a faint line all the way across, and then move your ruler down to the 3 3/4 inch mark and repeat. So make sure your ruler is running across horizontally and draw a line across like so. Then I'm going to move my ruler down to the bottom edge of the cardstock and use my ruler to make a mark on the bottom edge at 2 1/8. So that we've got two marks, top and bottom, at 2 1/8 of an inch. If we remove this piece from our scoreboard, bring in your ruler again and line the top corner of your ruler up with the mark on the top edge of the pencil, and rotate your ruler around so that it is in line with the end of the pencil line across at 1 1/4. And as you rotate your ruler into place so it lines up with the two marks, you should find if you draw a line across between the two marks, like so, the length of that line is 2.5 inches. If it's a smidge out, don't worry, but you don't want it to be more than 1/8 in either direction in terms of the measurement. So the length of that line there is 2.5. And then if we rotate the piece, and the length of the line across between the two pencil lines is 2.5, and then we're going to work our way around as we did the first time, lining up our ruler with the pencil marks on the outer edge of the cardstock and drawing a line across, and the length of the line will be 2.5 inches. There we have our hexagonal shape, which is the base for the box. So the next thing we want to do is cut along our pencil lines using whichever means you prefer. I'm going to rub out the pencil marks because this piece is going to be seen inside the box. The next thing we want to do is make the sides to attach to this. Now you can make the sides deeper if you so choose. So if you wanted to make the box deeper, obviously you would need to change this width here. But you will need 2 strips which are 8 inches times whatever height you want for the base of the box, plus a 1/2 inch for the glue tab and a 1/2 inch for the lip. So this particular piece, I've got 2, and these are 8 inches times 2.5 inches. And on both pieces, we're going to score along the long side at 2.5, 5, and 7.5. rotate to the short side, score at half and 2. So as I say, you'll do that twice, 2.5, 5, 7.5 on the short side, score at half and 2. We're going to fold and burnish along all of the score lines. Bring in your scissors. We're going to cut both pieces exactly the same way. So if you start with the 1/2 inch tab over on the right hand side, we're going to cut up each of the score lines within the 1/2 inch tab at the bottom and remove the bottom right hand square. Take a wedge from the ends of these. Rotate the piece 180 degrees so your 1/2 inch tab is now over on the left. We're going to cut up each of the 1/2 inch score lines within the tab, like so, as we did with the bottom, and we're going to remove the end left hand square. Now for the moment, I'm going to leave these tabs intact because these are going to create the lip for the box. So we will decide if we want to shape or adjust these once we put the piece together. Rotate the piece and just take a wedge from the end of the glue tab. So this is how we're going to adhere the 2 strips together. So we have one piece which looks like this, and we're going to repeat that with this second strip. That's my 2 strips. I'm going to adhere these together like so. We now want to add this piece onto our base. So we could add our glue onto our glue tabs and add the piece on like this and then secure this final glue tab into place. Or we could, of course, create the circuit of our side pieces, flip that over and then secure our base on top. So do whichever you think is going to be easiest. I'm going to create the circuit for the sides and then flip the piece over and add the base onto the bottom. So just make sure you get your score lines lined up all the way around. If you're doing this way, I'm going to fold in each of these top tabs for the moment, flatten those down, sit this in place, and then I'm going to add glue onto each of these glue tabs and then sit my box in place like so and manipulate the sides into position. So I'm now going to go in with my score tool and just burnish down the tabs. So that is the base of the box, and at the moment I'm not going to do anything else with these tabs around the lip. So the next thing we're going to work on is the top of the shell. For this, again, you'll need 2 pieces which are 8 inches times 3 inches. Along the short side, score at half and 2 1/4. Rotate to the long side. You want the 1/2 inch section at the top, and we're going to score at 2.5, 5 and 7.5. Bring in your ruler and line the ruler up with the 1/2 inch score line. You'll want to be marking on the score line. And we're making a pencil mark at 5/8 of an inch, 1 7/8 of an inch, 3 1/8 of an inch, 4 3/8 of an inch, 5 5/8 of an inch, and 6 7/8 of an inch. So our pencil marks are going to be 5/8 of an inch from the edge of the cardstock on the left, or 5/8 of an inch either side of the score lines, which are at 2.5, 5 and 7.5. So you want to do that on 2 pieces. So I'll just run through those measurements again. So along the 3 inch edge of your cardstock, you'll score at half and 2 1/4. Rotate the piece to the long side with the 1/2 inch tab at the top. Score at 2.5, 5 and 7.5. Bring in your pencil and ruler and line your ruler up with the 1/2 inch score line. And we're going to mark on the score line at 5/8 of an inch, 1 7/8, 3 1/8, 4 3/8, 5 5/8, and 6 7/8. So you'll have two pieces which look like this. So the first thing you want to do is fold and burnish along the score lines. Now on each piece we're going to do some cutting and scoring, and we're going to have our cut lines on the left hand side of a section and our scoring on the right hand side of a section. So if you lay your piece down so that your tab is on the right hand side, bring in your ruler and your stylus, and if you treat these as 3 individual sections, we're going to work from the right hand pencil line. So I've got one pencil line here at 5/8 of an inch and another one which is 5/8 of an inch away from the score line. So I'm going to score using my stylus from this pencil mark here down to here where the 3/4 inch score line and the side of this section intersect. So this point here. So I'm going to come across. Now you can score right the way up to the top edge of the cardstock, but you want to make sure you go through this pencil line down to this junction here. Move along to the next section, and I'm going to score from the pencil mark here down to the junction here, like so, and do the same in the third section. So you can see each of my sections has got an additional score line on the right hand side. So you do that on both pieces, and the next thing we want to do is our cutting. Now if you would prefer, you could draw the lines in that we're going to cut away first, or go straight in with your scissors. It's entirely up to you. I'll put in one line just to demonstrate. So we're going to work now on the left hand side. So we will be cutting from the end of the score line here up through the pencil mark, which is on the left hand side of the section, up to the top edge of the cardstock. So this section here is going to be cut away. On the second section, we're going to go from the junction up through the top, up to the top edge of the card. So this is our cut line here, and we're going to cut down this score line here, and we're going to cut this section away. So if you want to put the pencil lines in first, you can do that. Alternatively, you can just go in with straight in with your scissors. So if I work on this piece that doesn't have the pencil lines in, because not everyone's going to want to put the pencil lines in, I've got my 1/2 inch tab over on the left hand side. I'm going to line my scissors up so that I'm going to cut through this pencil mark here on the score line to the end of the cardstock. So that's removed that triangle. I'm going to repeat that in this second section. So I've cut that side away, but we need to leave something in place in order that we can glue the piece together to create our shape. So I'm going to cut down the score line that splits the two pieces and remove this triangle section in the middle, like so. So I've cut that piece away, and we've got our sections which look like so. So I'm going to do the same on the end. So that's how our piece looks. So we want to keep this score line in place. I'm going to cut down to the junction like so. Remove that section like so, and take a wedge from the end of this small tab. So our piece looks like so. So the next thing we want to do is remove the excess within these sections. So I'm going to have my piece in this orientation, and I'm going to cut up the score line to the start of the tab and then remove the excess to the side of the tab. We don't need that in place. So we're going to end up with each section with just a triangle like so. So this is our piece. Next thing we want to do is fold and burnish along these score lines. So that's how our piece will look, and there are our tabs. So you want to repeat that on your second piece. Now we want to glue these together, so you can start by gluing the strips together like so, and then work on the piece as one long strip, or you might find it easier to work in two sections and then join them together. But we want to add glue onto the triangles, and then we're going to bring the triangles around and adhere them to the piece which is next to them. So you might want to create two sections of 3 and then add them together, or as I say, work in one long strip. It's entirely your choice. So that's my first portion of the shell. I'm going to join up the two sections together. Then when you get to the end, just pull the piece into shape, add glue onto the two tabs and join the piece so that it's one continuous piece. So that is the top of my tortoise shell, and we now want to make the hexagon for the lid. If you have a hexagon die, you will need a hexagon which has sides which are 1 1/4 of an inch. We're going to make our own hexagon, and the starting cardstock is 2 1/8 times 2 1/2. So I'm working on the reverse. So the first thing you want to do is along the 2 1/8 of an inch edge, make a mark at 1 1/16, so halfway across, and do the same on the bottom, 1 1/16. Rotate the piece so your pencil marks will be left and right, and we're going to mark along the top edge at 5/8 of an inch and 1 7/8 of an inch, and on the bottom edge do the same, 5/8 of an inch and 1 7/8 of an inch. And then, as we did with the larger hexagon, we're going to draw in the sides. So the distance now between the pencil mark at the top on the left and the right is 1 1/4 inches. So if we turn it around in this orientation, and if we make a line from the top edge down to the top pencil mark on the right, the length of that line will be 1 1/4 inches. So this line here is 1 1/4, this one is 1 1/4, and we're going to do that all the way around. So that is my hexagon with 1 1/4 inch sides, and I'm now going to cut that out. Bring in the top of the shell, and that is going to sit and be glued into place like so. So I'm quite happy with how that's sitting on there. So we want to bring in your base of your hexagon, sit your hexagon in this orientation. So you've got these two sides opposite one another and the pointy at the top and the bottom, and put your lid in the same orientation. So that is going to sit on the top like so. Now you want to pull up the tab which is on the right, so this one. So this tab here is going to be our hinge to attach the lid onto this piece. So you might want to stick these other pieces down, so you might want to add a little bit of glue under the corner here and secure those in place. Alternatively, you might want to leave these loose so that the recipient can just pull those out. Depends the type of gift that you're putting in it. So I'm actually going to leave my tabs loose. So I'm going to turn the piece round and just snip off the corners, just so that this is going to sit nicely in the lid. And I do want to just get rid of that score line that I'd left behind. So I'm going to add glue onto this glue tab, so it's going to be in that orientation. My lid is in that orientation, so it sits nicely on top, and I'm going to add the hinge in to the back like so. Add some glue onto here. So that's the back. This is in the same orientation. So I'm going to flip that over and just fold that hinge into that side like so, so that I can attach them together. So I'm going to let that take for a moment and then just flip this over and just make sure that the lid sits nicely on the base of the box, which that does. So I can just bring that back around and just burnish that into place with my fingers. So that's the body effectively of the shell, and now we need to work on the head. We're now going to make the head, and we're going to start by making the left and the right hand side of the face. I'm going to make one template, which I'm going to then draw around twice on my base cardstock to make the left and right hand side of the face. So this piece is 2 1/4 times 2 5/8, and we're going to start by working on the 2 1/4 inch side. So bring in your ruler and make a pencil mark at 1 1/4 inches, like so. Rotate the piece so the pencil mark is now on the left hand side. Put your ruler on the top edge and make a pencil mark at 1 5/8 inch, like so. Line the top corner of your ruler up with the pencil mark, like so. So the top edge of here is on my pencil mark. Then I'm going to rotate my ruler until the 1 3/8 inch mark on my ruler is lined up with this right hand edge of the cardstock. So I'm going to bring that round, draw a line across like so. So the length of this line is 1 3/8, and the distance between the end of the line and the top of the cardstock will be about a 1/16 under 1 inch. So this line here is 1 3/8 inch. Rotate the piece, so you've got a pencil mark at the bottom, pencil mark on the left, and the end of the line we've just drawn at the top. Line your ruler up with the end of the line and rotate your ruler until the 1 5/8 inch mark on your ruler is in line with the right hand side of the cardstock. So that is there, like so. So the length of this line here is 1 5/8, and it will be approximately 1 inch away from the top right hand corner. So the distance between here and here is going to be approximately 1 inch. Turn your piece round so your pencil lines will look like so, and you'll have a mark on the right hand side like so, and measure along 1 1/4 inches from the end of the line that we've just drawn. Make a mark with your pencil. So the distance between the end of here and the pencil mark here is 1 1/4 inches. Then we're going to join up the pencil mark that we've just made down with the pencil mark here, and you should find that the length of your line is 1 3/8 inch. So once you've done that, you want to cut that shape out it's the length of these lines which is important rather than the distance that it is away from the top, because it's the length of these lines that we're going to use to create the sides so we can attach the two sides of the face together. So we now want to cut that into our base cardstock. Now if you're using single-sided cardstock, obviously you're going to have one which will be that way up and one which will be that way up, so that you get a left and a right hand side of your head. And then we're going to cut that out. Whilst I'm cutting that out, I will just put that on the screen so that you can just have the measurements. Once you've cut your pieces out, do just sit them on top of one another to make sure that they are the same shape, which these two are. So we now want to join these two together. So for this you will need one strip which is 8 3/4 times 3 inches. Along the short side, score at 1/2 and 2 1/2, and along the long side, score at 1 3/8, 2 3/8, 4, 5 3/8, 7 and 8 1/4. Fold and burnish along all of the score lines, and we want to cut up each of the tabs within the 1/2 inch section. So this is going to create our side glue tabs. So we'll repeat this on both the top and the bottom of this strip, like so. And then we're going to cut away these corners at the end. So this 1/2 inch section here is going to be our tab, which is going to sit down inside our flap for our lid. So I'm going to take a wedge from each of these, and then when you get to the last full section, which is this section here, decide whether you want to have those straight or cut them away or shape them. This is effectively going to be the lid, so you might want to decide once we've got the piece in place how you want that lid to look. So for the moment I'm going to take a wedge from all of the sections except the end section. So I'm going to leave these sections square for the moment. So then we'll do the same on this side. So if we bring in one of our sides of our head, so if you imagine this is the nose, as it were, and this is the neck. This side section here is the neck that's going to join it onto the box. I'm going to start from the opposite end of the lid. So this is the lid with the 1/2 inch tab. I'm going to start from this end, add glue onto my first tab, and that is going to adhere to the back of the head. So my lid is down here. This is going to adhere on like so. So there's the top of the head, there's the nose, chin, underside, the back of the head. So that's going to sit there like so. So I'm going to work my way around, adding glue onto my sections. So I've got this last section here, that's going to come across like so. And then I have my lid and my lid flap. So that's one side, and then I can fold these tabs in, add glue onto my glue tabs like so. Make sure you keep your lid out the way, you don't want to be adding any glue to that. And take this piece and stick this piece on the top and manipulate the side pieces into place. Flip the lid out of the way, sit this down, just pushing these two tabs, sit this down flat and just go in and push down on the glue tabs. You don't want to be moving the glue tabs, because obviously your glue is still wet, but just push downwards rather than moving the piece, as you can see I've just done there. And then I can go in and do this side. So just take your lid, and if I push my lid down, I can see that the side tabs are not going to fit in. So I'm just going to mark with a pencil, so it's about 1/8 of an inch. So I'm just going to shape the front of those, just do the other one by eye. And you could, of course, then shape or round off the corners of this front flap as well if you so wanted. So that is going to fit in the top like so. I can just get my circle punch in there to cut a notch. So that is going to come across and sit in place like so. So that's our head. So the next thing we want to do is join the head to the body. So the head, if you open your box up, so my hinge is on this side, so my head is going to go on that side. So you can position your head anywhere on this section here. So I'm just going to add some glue to this back section. I'm just going to sit that roughly in the middle. Now you could line yours up with the bottom edge of the box if you so wished. Depends what you're going to be putting in it. If you are going to be putting something with some weight in it, then you might feel, depending on the cardstock you've used, that you want the chin or the bottom of the head, as it were, to be lined up with the base of the box. So that's entirely your choice. So I've got maybe 1/4 of an inch gap, but you could sit that lower if you wanted. So I'm going to let that dry. So I'm going to get on with my decoration now, and then I'll come back. Here's my decorated box. I've just added a googly eye and used some Black Nouveau drops to draw the mouth. Haven't gone too overboard on the face. I will give you the measurements for the pieces that I've used for the shell. I recut the hexagon the same size, so the 1 1/4 inch, and then trimmed off 1/8 of an inch off of all of the sides to get this piece. The pieces here around the top, I made myself a template. So this was 2 1/8 of an inch across by 1 1/2. And then from the top left and right hand corners, I measured in 1/2 an inch and then created this shape, laid that on the top, made sure I was happy, and then I cut round that 6 times to get this look. The thin pieces around the edge, these sections here, these are 1/2 an inch by 2 1/4, and then these pieces are 2 1/4 times 1 1/4. The paper I've used is from the Craft Consortium Ink Drops Dusk paper pad, and this was a 6x6 paper pad. So there we have the box. This piece opens like so, and then the head opens like so. So there's our project for today. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you have done so, please hit the thumbs up button. And if you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to the channel. And until next time, thanks for watching.